Welcome to Series 2, Episode 1. I don't even know where to begin. I don't know how to keep this as short as possible, because keeping things short is not something that I am very good at, as you all already know if you've listened to me before. But I will take you on the shortest journey that I can to update you on where I am, but also where I've been. Obviously, some of you will know or have noticed, because I know some of you have messaged me, etc. I disappeared for the first time, really. It's been in this game now for probably 10 years or more. I can't remember the exact date, but it's been a long time. And as I've kind of shared before, I started out as a PT, but very quickly I saw that it's really simple, right? You just eat less and you move more. It's that simple, right? You lift some weights and you'll look better. It's not difficult, but yet as humans we make it so difficult. And I wanted to know why. Why is that? And that's what led me down the route of neuroscience and psychology and looking at humans holistically. I saw a lot of people's lives change from working with me. And when I say lives change, I don't mean, oh wow, they suddenly had a six pack or they had less fat on them, because yeah, that was true. But what I saw was that their back pain would go away, or their relationship would improve, or and that's because I always had a holistic approach to it. I always, we would have meditation at the end of sessions, and there'd be deeper conversations. I was always kind of coaching, life coaching, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, whilst training people, talking about the deeper issues, people. I remember one of my earlier testimonials was like, James asks you questions that you wouldn't normally expect from a man. Because it would be. I'd ask questions. It wasn't just about training for me. But anyway, that led me into obviously coaching. It took me on the journey. I went on my own journey. And then I've been obviously taking clients on that journey for a long, 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 long time. But I'm always honest, as you know. I always overshare. I'm always super honest, and I'm okay with that. I like to kind of be authentic. But long story short, after doing this for a long time, it might have been a couple of years ago now, a year ago, I lose track. I just found myself feeling like I just don't give a shit anymore about any of this. I just can't give a shit anymore. And if I don't feel passionate, I can't be asked to record content, and I don't want to record content. And I've got nothing good to say, and I've got nothing useful to say, and everyone would disagree with that, because I've had some clients, and I've had telling me that they miss my podcast, and even saying I know that you sometimes think your old content's not good, but I listen to it on repeat, and that's been amazing. So I appreciate you if you have, because it is useful. It is nice to know that this is helping people. Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself in a room for not a lot of reason, right? So that was hard. That was the conflict, because I've got clients telling me their wives noticed, their parents have noticed, their lives have changed. I check back in with clients from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and they say honestly that my whole life trajectory changed, and still thanking me. And so it's like, I knew that I've done good work. I know that I've done good work. I know that I have helped people. Some clients are still with me from the start because they never want to leave. Some clients continue to refer people even after all this time, So the results are there, but yet there's a feeling inside of me that was like, just, I don't know, like something's missing, or like something's, I don't know, something's just not there for me, or wasn't there for me anymore. It felt like, I don't know, like I needed to continue the search in some ways, that I needed to continue. And I found myself just almost feeling a lot of the earlier emotions that I used to talk about, that I thought had gone in some ways. I started to just feel like, what's the point? I started to feel like just lost my zest for life. I felt angry. I felt a lot more angry. I was losing my temper at things, snappy with like people around me, losing my shit in traffic again. Um, just waking up and the first thought being, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go again. Another day, another day. I just started to feel like I was living my life on repeat. It was the same day, same shit, different day. I wasn't really, I was feeling unhappy where my life was. I was feeling unhappy with where my business was, feeling like I've been doing this for all this time, and yeah, doesn't really feel like my life is how it should look. Just generally, just feeling like life was a struggle. All of it was a struggle. Just waking up thinking, "Fuck, I feel miserable again," and for some reason, and I knew, and I remember I was talking to Nolan, best friend. Like I was saying, look, I know how to get out of this because I've been doing it for years. I know all the thinking strategies and all the clever shit that can get me out of this. But yet there was a part of me that for some reason didn't want to. It was like there was a part of me that for some reason was like, do you know what? I feel like I want to just sit in this. Um, and I've learned from various things. You don't really feel this way. You just think you do, and it's just your thoughts, and just go with the storm. Just let it settle. Don't think into it too much, and all this stuff I'd learned. But it was weird. It was like everything I'd learned up until that point was like I just had this almost this intuitive feeling that that wasn't where I wanted to go with this experience. In some ways, it was like so. I decided just be with it. And it was weird. It was like this kind of thought that just said, let's go with this. Rather than always stop yourself from feeling this emotion, rather than always explain the emotion away, rather than try and bypass the emotion using spirituality or positive thinking strategies, you keep feeling it, right? It keeps showing up. Let's see what this is. And that was very counterintuitive to the way I was looking at the world in that moment. But I did, and for a few days I just sat there, and it got darker and darker and more miserable, and I'd sit there on the sofa all day feeling like a sack of shit, in between distracting myself with the Xbox, um, and that just went on. Jenna would come home and just kind of almost worry, like, what's going on here, kind of thing, and I'm like, just embraced it, and I think I might have mentioned this part of the journey before, but essentially what happened at that point was it made sense for me to look in the direction of the emotion. And I didn't even know what that looked like at the time. What followed was me essentially watching a video by someone called Gabor Mate, who um, his whole message is around trauma and adverse childhood experiences and how our early childhood experiences impact us and are at the root of addiction and certain behaviors and adaptive behaviors. Um, and I watched that video and I basically cried for like an hour, non-stop. And then from that point, I just kept going in that direction. I kept going in the direction of realizing how much suppressed emotion I had. Um, Looking at things from a somatic perspective as well. So obviously, in terms of how to process emotions, how that shows up for us in our body, the sensations that come up for us, the wisdom of that as well. The wisdom of this, and how to work through that, how to work through the the emotions that show up, how to work through all of that, and that took me on a journey. It took me on a journey of looking at things from a more therapy perspective, from more of a therapeutic perspective, from a somatic perspective, from a kind of compassionate inquiry perspective. And then I started doing all the courses in that direction, and it changed my worldview. And the reason I disappeared and didn't really talk about this was because I don't like to share things when you're in them. I don't like to share things when you're in them because they don't make sense. You'll know this from your own experience. When you're triggered, nothing makes sense. You don't really know what the problem is because everything feels like the problem. Or like if you're angry, then everything makes you feel angry, or whatever it is, right? You just know you're in it, but you don't know why, you don't know the way through it, and nothing really makes sense. So I don't like to share things when I'm in it because I know that what I'm sharing might not come with the same level of clarity or understanding. Um, I like to kind of work through things, and then out the other side, I like to then um, yeah, see where I'm at essentially, and share that. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. There's about a million distractions. There's a window cleaner arrived and cleaning the windows, and so if I keep pausing, it's because my brain keeps getting pulled off in different directions. But so yeah, anyway, to cut to the point, um, yeah, I then went on to do the course with Gabor Mate to learn more about his approach into it. Courses in somatic inquiry and how that emotional processing, trauma, root cause therapy, and essentially seeing that, and it's obvious now I say it because I knew it but I didn't know that I knew it, or I knew it but I didn't know that anyone else was talking about it, if that makes sense. It's like I've always said this in my podcast, that you when you know something you already knew that you didn't know you knew, it feels like common sense. It feels like, it feels like, it never normally feels fresh and mind blowing as such. That generally tends to be more of a kind of egoic realization, but more of a deeper, profound realization normally comes with that level of common sense, comes with that feeling of, oh, I already knew this. Or it's almost like you get these flashes of realization that you realize you already knew this, you just hadn't quite connected the dots as such. It's like looking at an illusion, or looking for like Wally in a book of Where's Wally. Once you see him, you're like, oh, he was there all along, and now I've seen him, I can't unsee him, he's there. It's a bit like that. It's like all of this started to pull together so much of what I already knew but I didn't know that I knew. But yet at the same time, there were parts of this that I was ignoring for myself, because I think a lot of the reason I wasn't looking at emotions and processing emotions and my early childhood experiences that I don't necessarily talk publicly about, um, part of the reason I think I wasn't looking in the direction was I was afraid to. I was actually suppressing a lot of my own emotion and just not looking at it, dissociating from it, which is essentially where you kind of numb yourself from it, or spiritually bypassing, where it's just like you can make yourself feel good despite the fact that you're carrying like 7 rucksacks of shit on your back. You just kind of get on with it, or just pretend it's not there. So that's essentially where I've been. That's where I'm going to be. That's what I'm going to be talking a lot more about. That's the direction I've gone in. If this is a conversation that's interesting to you, then reach out. Um, my I was going to say coaching, but I don't know what you want to call it now. Coaching, therapy, either, has taken a slightly different form, where the idea is, in terms of how I'm approaching things and in terms of what I've learned and in terms of what seems really obvious to me now, is rather than learning strategies, thinking strategies to kind of trim the leaves on the weeds in your garden. You can trim them and you can cut them down and you can try and make them look pretty or tidier. It's more about getting to the root, like pulling the weed out at the root, essentially. Like, where is this behavior originated from? What did it serve? What was it originally created for? And is it still serving me? Because once you get to the root of that, you start to realize that we've mostly suppressed emotions because it wasn't safe to feel. And then we've created these kind of strategies in order to survive, in order to be loved, in order to be accepted, in order to survive, in order to gain the acceptance of friends or school or parents, etc. And then we're kind of living in the consequences of those adaptations. These adaptations that hold us back. They may have served us earlier on and now they don't anymore. These suppressed emotions that we were never allowed to feel because it wasn't safe to feel. If it wasn't, for women, I often see they weren't allowed to show anger. That wasn't an acceptable emotion. Men, anger seems to be more of an acceptable emotion, but sadness isn't. Tears, sadness, etc. All these emotions that become, or the way we had to be in order to survive. If we showed anger towards our parents, maybe we got physically beaten, so you have to suppress it, or etc., etc., right? You can just see, if you look at the human from a place of learning and adaptation, we have been learning our entire lives how to function and how to be in this world and how to show up in an acceptable way, which means we kind of lose our own authenticity, we lose our own sense of self. But also, in amongst all of that, we we kind of lose ourselves in the process. and then we wonder why we feel anxious, or we wonder why we feel kind of depressed, or we wonder why we overthink things, or procrastinate, or seem to ride this emotional roller coaster, etc. So anyway, that's it for today, because otherwise I'm going to be talking for hours. I will continue to record these podcasts. I'm also going to be doing daily videos. I've decided that Instagram is going to be where I do them. It just feels like the easiest place to do them. Short of daily videos is the intention. Whether I'll do daily or not, we shall see. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'll put the link in this somewhere. And also I'll be recording podcasts. I'm aiming for once a week. Again, I don't know how well that will go, because it always depends on whether I feel inspired, and it always depends on whether I've got something that I feel useful. I don't just force these, as you know. They're more, this has always been like art for me. You create it, and it comes from a place of inspiration and flow. And yeah, when you feel inspired to share something useful, it's not really something you just sit down and force yourself to do, because it loses the magic, it loses the essence, and it just becomes a bit kind of mechanical, as opposed to sort of creative and flow based. But anyway, if you've enjoyed this, if this is let me know. It'd be good to know that that you're still listening. It'd be good to know what you get from this. It's always quite useful to hear. And if you have any questions as well, because I use those questions to then inform the next videos or podcasts. But anyway, I will speak to you soon. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.